if a teleprompter cuts out, you would hope that they would have had some sort of dry run so they would know the next couple of lines.
He just walked off, Erica.
I know. He's like, nope, and there goes a teleprompter. Bye.
You stay classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Damn it! Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter?
Get your backups ready and what happens when, well, things go down. Also, managing your power consumption of your AV systems. All that and more. Next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 674, recorded Friday, July 19th, 2024. AV Backup. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest news and information from AV. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered. First and foremost, Erica Carroll from CharBett. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Tim. Glad to be here.
If you are watching, or if you're not watching the video, yes, Erica is in an RV. No, she is not driving. I just want to put that out there as a safety message more than anything. Also with us is a young man. I had to write out his college phonetically because the last time I had him on, I had a hard time saying Yavapai College, but Yavapai College is Ryan Gray. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good to see you, young man.
Good to see you. Also a brand new, a newly ensconced executive member of HETMA as well. So
sucker.
Yeah, well, yeah. And that voice you hear is Mike Brown-Cestero. We're going to say Mike's from Cavlo, but he has a couple of other jobs, but we'll just say Cavlo because they have an event coming up as well. Welcome, sir.
Good morning to everyone. For me, morning anyway.
Well, Mike and Ryan are both on the west side of the United States, so yeah, still technically morning.
West Coast is the best coast.
Best coast.
We're grown-ups, and we've already moved on with our day. All right.
Yeah.
All right, okay, this doesn't happen in the world of AV. We do not get breaking news. It just doesn't happen. Like in the 12 years I've been doing this, the 90% of the breaking news was somebody about somebody, right? Think Samsung buying Harman. That was a breaking news, right? However, this morning, the fine folks at CrowdStrike gave me a present for this very show. If you're not familiar, today, this morning, Friday, July 19th, the world woke up to a widespread, quote unquote, technical situation. What happened was the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, they had an issue. They said it's not it's not a hacking issue. It is an update gone bad. And I'll give you some 2 cents at the very end of that. Technical issue, it caused flight cancellations, hospital operations that were impacted, critical infrastructure was crippled globally. So this happened the same week, actually, as U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson. This is not a political statement. He faced a teleprompter malfunction while introducing the next speaker at the Republican National Convention here in the States. All kinds of technical issues, all kinds of reliance on technology. Ryan, I'm going to start with you on this. Yes, we are really dependent on our technology. Yes, we are really dependent on the things that we work with on a daily basis to get our jobs done, to make things happen. When those things go down, what is the best backup plan for getting back up and running?
Yeah, I think to your point, I think the best backup plan is having a plan, right? So we, in all parts of our lives, we think and talk about, what do I do if I have a flat tire while I'm driving? Or where do I go when the fire alarm goes off? Those sorts of things we prepare for, we think about, but when these things seem to happen, everyone is really surprised. So I had a former boss that used to, one of his things, and I think it's a Mitch Hedberg joke that he stole, right? But we want to make sure we build escalators, because if an escalator stops working, then it's just stairs, and congratulations for the convenience. So the idea is having, as you build out systems, what if something goes wrong? Can something manual be done? What are those sorts of things? But also, what is the non-tech backup plan? And when I see things like that teleprompter one, when you see somebody who literally, if the teleprompter stops working, they cannot function, I'm just like, man, if only paper still existed and you could have that script up there for people to be ready. So, I think really we talk a lot about the plans and how we can build redundant systems, and we do that. What if my control system goes down? Is there a hot backup that comes online? But as tech managers, and on campuses and things like that, our backup plan is making our user base good digital citizens. And there is no backup plan like having a user base that is aware of their dependency on technology and is willing to trade the amazing convenience that this level of technology gives us, the productivity gives us, but we're willing to say we're willing to say when it disappears, we're going to need to have a backup plan and think about that and not just become completely dependent upon it to function in any way.
So it has been, I did the math the other day, it has been right at 10 years since I was a tech manager, Ryan. Even 10 years ago, we had professors at my fantastic Lewis and Clark Community College who would cancel classes because they couldn't get the projector to work because they couldn't show their PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
How do you get those users on board with a backup plan?
Here's it. So I wish there was an easy answer to that, to that individual person. And here's my answer to it, which is on our campus, one of the things I work really hard on is the culture that the professor is not the customer. The student is the customer. The professor is our partner in providing service to the student. Therefore, it is not a matter of to change the thought process of I cannot teach if I don't have that thing there. We invite them into that process. But that has to be sort of an understood culture. And I think it's also an easier thing to do at a place, where I am at a community college where we're very focused on that. If that user you're talking about is a 4-time Nobel laureate, you probably have to deal with that in a different way. What I would do in those types of situations, and I have, say, with our college president, or other people like that, I'm working with the people around them who are assisting them every day. Who's that TA? Who's the assistant? Who's whatever that can say, just like that, what is our fire alarm plan? We may never have to use it, but when that happens, what are we going to do so that A, everybody knows what to do, and B, that person, they're up on stage, they have the camera on them, and somebody gave them that little prep. Hey, if your mic cuts out, just wait for a second. We're going to walk you one. It's going to be okay. If your teleprompter cuts out, just hold on for a second. Don't panic. We'll be there. And have that conversation up front.
A piece of paper, yes, absolutely. But also, if a teleprompter cuts out, you would hope that they would have had some sort of dry run so they would know the next couple of lines. It was not that big of a deal. I mean, in the teleprompter situation, they could have just said, and here's the next person, so and so. They didn't even
off, Erica. She just
I know.
said, peace out.
He's like, nope, and there goes a teleprompter. No. So he wasn't properly rehearsed, I think is that issue.
Well, and I would have to add he wasn't even properly prepared, because the point of what he was doing was introducing a person. Right. So at that point, you could at least say, oh my gosh, there went the teleprompter. Sorry, folks. But with no further ado, introduction. Done. Have a nice day. Move on.
So this whole thing has spawned a lot of conversation in my household this morning, and we were talking about how do you prepare somebody for something like that. And you just mentioned that a professor is, sometimes they might show up to a classroom and say, I can't use my projector. I'm not going to teach. And I think that's more of an issue of somebody who's not ready to improvise or think on their feet. And I was talking to Joel about this morning. Like, if you were to interview somebody, it would be a really interesting way. Instead of asking, what kind of objections have you faced and how did you overcome it, or something like that. It would be more valuable to give a hypothetical situation. Here's the entire situation. How would you overcome this? And actually work through, their thought process on that.
Well, and as an integrator, I would also say that if we go several steps back, and to use your example of the college professor, we go several steps back, I would never implement without making a comment or design, if we're doing design build or being hired strictly as a consultant to design, an AV system in a classroom that didn't have a stupid, simple, wall plate that goes straight up to the projector. Great for, we've installed AV over IP systems all over the place. We have a couple running right now that have well over 100 endpoints. I get the value of them. And yet there is a way for our end users, should that network switch die all of a sudden, and they just need to get something up in the interim till we get them another switch, there is a way they could literally go grab a source device, plug it into a wall plate on the wall, and switch an input on their projector, and they will have content. Will they have all the bells and whistles? No. Can they route all their sources in and out? No, but they can keep moving for sure. So I think as AV professionals, it's incumbent on us not only to foresee the situation and help coach the person, but also to what Ryan was saying, just say, hey, by the way, we have this other path. And if it's a live situation, a production system, it'll take us a minute or two, but trust me, we got you covered. So if something goes wrong, don't panic. We'll catch up to you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, what a great example for Micah. That's an escalator, not an elevator. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not going to take you up anymore. You're going to have to walk up the steps, but you can still get where you're going. We put in a manual backup in there, and it was part of an intentional design process.
So sure. I want to take that a step further too, real quick. On the manufacturing side, with the more, everybody's getting cloud connected and they want to have these intelligent new products, to be conscious of the products that they're building could have these faults to them, and not thinking about those contingency plans within their own products. I think that's something that manufacturers should be considering moving forward as well.
To your point, I love seeing devices that, for example, it has a Dante connection. Great. Does it also have an analog audio out, whether it's a Phoenix connector or an 1/8 inch connector, 3.5 millimeter, that works redundantly? Great. It has AV over IP out. Is there also an HDMI out in case I just want to do local monitoring, or as a backup that I can then run as an extender, over an extender, just as a super dumb, super simple way of at least getting something to my endpoint, right?
All right. From our friends over at AV Magazine, tech giant Nvidia has revealed its significant contribution to the Sphere in Las Vegas, which a bunch of us got to see while we were there for InfoComm, disclosing that approximately 150 of its RTX A6000 graphic cards are powering the venue's massive LED displays. This explains why my 16-year-old can't get one for his PC. This announcement comes on the heels of Nvidia becoming the world's most valuable public company, riding the wave of the AI technology boom. Now, the company's high-performance GPUs, along with advanced networking and synchronization technologies, are enabling the Sphere to deliver quote-unquote unprecedented immersive experiences. Now, the downside. The revelation has sparked discussions about the venue's potential power consumption, with peak load estimates reaching 28 million watts. I'll put my finger up here like Dr. Evil. 28 million watts. Sphere Entertainment Company has addressed these concerns with quote-unquote plans to source about 70% of its energy from a new solar facility. Mike, I'm going to start with you because you're right there. How much has your power bill gone up anyway? And now that you're competing, I'm joking. This is a serious concern, right? And it is not just the Sphere. We're picking on the Sphere because it's big and it's beautiful and it's a big thing.
And it's bright and shiny. It's so bright, actually. It's 28 million watts.
But so does the AI processing. So does, AV over, all these things.
So does the Pentagon, right?
Yeah.
Probably, and other, Apple campus, probably. Who knows, But yeah, so there's a lot of power usage out there. What a lot of folks don't know about Vegas, and tons of general knowledge about Vegas out there, but for example, MGM Resorts International completely offsets its power usage on a daily basis with a solar farm that they own out in the desert. If you ever drive from Vegas to Southern Cal, one of those ginormous solar farms that you pass is theirs. Okay. And they completely, for every property, top to bottom, And at night, they actually put some power back into the system because their system, that they use a steam turbine system, and even at night, it's still generating power. Obviously, not as well as during the day, but it does. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what the Sphere is planning, either to build their own or to lease space from an existing one. Power consumption is a big deal. A lot of Nevada power is clean, and that, it'd be great if we could tie that to those facilities out there, like we just joked about the Apple campus and the Pentagon, but probably a fair bit of power out there. But it's difficult when you have an older facility and you're trying to tie into an existing grid, and you don't have a lot of open space where you can build a whatever 30, 40 acre solar farm. It's a little tricky to do that. We take power and water pretty seriously in Nevada. Just because of where we are and the fact that we're very dependent on people outside of the Las Vegas area for our water, for our power, for our gasoline. There's only one pipeline that comes into Vegas, for example. So if it's ever closed for maintenance, there's no gas coming to Vegas. So we take that stuff pretty seriously. It's a lot of power. And to comment about something else you mentioned, you were joking. You said your kid couldn't get a gaming console, but there is a significant audio manufacturer that during the building of the Sphere, all their other product lines went into back order status because they were building components for the Sphere and they couldn't have both lines running full bore. So you start to, there's a lot of layers to this story, right? Like straight on power consumption, right? Responsible, human beings, power consumption in AV, and, how do we mitigate that? Obviously concerts, for example, use a lot of power. And then also this whole thought of, okay, manufacturer, you're going to step into this ginormous, never done before. And I actually don't mind them using the word unprecedented in this case, because it really is.
It really is.
You're gonna jump into this arena to provide these powers. How are you going to keep taking care of all your other customers that got you this far for the last 30 years?
And will continue to do so after the Sphere is open.
Right, because there's probably only going to be one, maybe two more Spheres in the world ever, at this point, at least from this company. So, it's not your business plan. It's certainly not your future. So you really don't want to tick off all the people that have been buying your products for 20 to 30 years. And even if they are very understanding people, because us, AV integrators and trade show marketers are known for our patience and humility and how accommodating we are. Even if we're like that, if you don't have product, I'm going to try somebody else's, and 100%. I might like it more. So it's an interesting story. It's got a lot of layers to it that are going to play out over time. And it's a story that I think marketing people need to look at, product managers need to look at, end users, integrators, people who are concerned about being green. There's a lot in this story when on the surface it just looks like, look, 28 million watts, that's amazing. And you move on.
Erica, one of the aspects I did want to touch on is the idea that of AV systems that use too much electricity. And how and quite frankly, what is too much, right? 28 million watts is a big number, right? And my brain can't even wrap my head around that. But just generically, when you look at the power consumption and the heat dissipation of a rack room, right? And then the energy it takes to get that rack room down again to an operatable temperature. There's a math problem there that I probably am not smart enough to know. But, how do we, as we move into kind of this second half of the 21st century and energy is increasingly becoming an issue, how do we manage the excellent experience that Avixa is encouraging us to give with the power consumption that we know is probably not sustainable long term?
I'm not really sure. That's a great question. How do we build better experiences all around?
I'll just jump in real quick, just as a point that came up as you were mentioning it. I forget when it was. I want to say it was the early to mid 2000s when LEED certification came out. Yep. Every project we went on, we had these charts and these spreadsheets, and you had to fill everything out. And I will say, moving forward, one of the good things that came out of it is almost every piece of AV gear now, you can find out what its heat signature is, how many BTUs it puts out. That wasn't quite as easy 20 years ago. But yeah, so we did all that. And at the end of the day, I don't remember the exact numbers, but on most projects, AV was like less than 1% of the power consumption of the building. And they frankly stopped caring, all these architects and engineers and everything, because it just wasn't significant enough. You're choosing one difference in spec for a window on an office building, for example, could make a 20 to 30% difference in power consumption on the HVAC side. So the less than 1% AV was, everybody was like, whatever, just move on.
Tim brought up a good point, though, about the multiplier and how do we actually cool down those rack rooms or storage cabinets, even if you have multiple of them throughout a campus. That just adds to that energy consumption. Part of it, obviously, on the manufacturing side, comes down to design. How do we, get, better design, better cooling technology, more heat sinks on those products to keep that energy consumption down in the first place.
To bring those things together, like I love, we talk about this many million watts of the thing, but the article was careful to say that's the peak power number, right? And oftentimes keeping a good eye on
what it was pumping out during InfoComm.
Yeah, exactly. But like, what does it actually, like, what day in and day out, what is the load actually going to be? Are we real about that? And in our world, there's always a little bit of a trade-off in terms of like saving power. That is, if a system's in an off state, what should be on and what should be off? And the only real thing you're worried about in when you're programming that out or whatever is how long does it take to come up? So from a user, an instant on standpoint, the default can be just leave everything on that can be on all the time. And that way, if a user walks in the room, it happens, everything's great right away, including like power saving settings in PCs and things like that. Don't let it go to sleep. Don't ever let the monitor turn off, those sorts of things, because it's a perceived, thing, and it cuts down on calls. Like I walked in and it didn't work. Did you jiggle the mouse? Oh, no, I didn't jiggle the mouse. Oh, what do you know? It just woke up. Versus, but going back to what we talked about before with users being part of it, like instant on may be a great user experience, but if that's burning more power than you want to, do we have to make sure our users know, like, okay, this has got an occupancy sensor, come in, you give it 20 seconds and this system will be up and ready for you because we are, powering down an amp or powering down things in the background. And especially for college campuses, like we work hard to make sure our classrooms are used efficiently, but they sit empty a lot of the time. So are we running that same peak power number when they're off, versus when they're on? But I would say the same to Mike's point is the projects we work on, the power consumption of even IT, including cooling IDFs and things like that, pales in comparison to things like roof coating and window levels and things like that, because especially for us here in the West, there's a lot of energy coming into buildings from the outside that we're working hard to throw back to the outside. Yeah. And I'm glad, Mike, you brought up the thing with solar, because one of the notes I made here is we don't have a power problem. We have a power source problem. Oftentimes electricity usage equals greenhouse gas emissions, and there's way more than 20 million watts of power hitting the desert floor every day. So we could just grab that power, then we could power, however many spheres we want to, without having that same feeling that we're doing damage as we're building and operating those things.
Let me ask you this, because I'll tell a quick story, and I've told it before on AVWeek, but it bears repeating. 100 years ago, tech manager, I was helping a friend of mine here at a fairly well-known college university here in St. Louis. And we were switching out a Crestron. It was a 17-inch Crestron quick media touch panel. For those of us that are old enough to remember that, for those of you who are not, it was the first touch panel that shot video to the touch panel, but it was 17 inches, right? This sucker was $20,000 in 2005, I think. And we go in to switch it out, and there is a perfect indentation of a fist. Okay? There is no escaping what happened here. Somebody put their fist through this touch panel. Come to find out, it was somebody who won some prize somewhere, had like 5 PhDs, did this, that, and the other, had grants coming out of their ears. And how dare some stupid piece of technology tell that professor that he had to wait 90 seconds for the projector to cool down so he could restart the sucker? That's some of the customers you're dealing with, Ryan. Yeah. So how do you balance the customer experience, the user experience, with energy consumption that is a legitimate concern long-term and not just for you, Mr. or Mrs. PhD, doctorate, or whatever, and the fact that you might want to turn something on and off 5 times in 10 seconds?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's an anticipation thing. So, like I said, we have in our world, like we have areas and things that at night things shut down, they come back up in advance for the next day. It's really just kind of a space by space, event by event, or sort of calculation on those things. And sometimes in that case, Tim, it's personality based. I can tell you things that are in the building of our executive team may have a little bit more on or uptime than things that are in other places because, tech managers deal actually far more in the intricacies of human interaction than they do in technology interaction on a day in and day out basis. And that's kind of where we live. So you're right about that. The other thing is, well, I won't go to the other, but yeah, the painful time of waiting for a projector to shut down and turn on. I accidentally turned off a projector during a budget hearing of our governing board, and I'm the one that had programmed the delay before you could turn it back on. And so I had to stand there while everybody was looking at me, waiting to turn the thing back on. And I went, why on earth didn't I program an "Are you sure" button into this panel before I did that?
Well, okay, so a couple. This is we're getting ready to wrap up here. We're not going to hit the last story. This is almost 20 years ago now, when it did take legitimately, when it was a bulb, right? It was a lamp based. Today's projector, you can turn that sucker off and turn it back on in 3 seconds. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
20 years ago, it mattered, right? Because it physically had to cool down.
And I love, because that means the technologies move forward, right? Also, those projectors don't take near the power that they used to. That laser engine doesn't take near what the bulb did, and it doesn't take the same maintenance, and you're not rolling as many trucks out to change filters and bulbs. Like, for all the challenges we have with power consumption, man, it's gotten a ton better in the last 15 years.
Those lights aren't generating the heat.
Yeah, I was going to mention that earlier. I just did a system recently for a spa, and we put in 12. We replaced 12 channels of 70 volt amplification, which before was 4U, 2U amps. We replaced that and still have some wattage to spare with 3 half rack amps that don't even have cooling fans. Mm-hmm. They don't need them. They just don't. That they have a little bit of. I'm sure there's some sort of convection cooling built into the housing or something, but they just don't need them. And the amps we took out, trying to lug it around, and then I got the other 3 in my hand. I'm like, here's an amp for everybody, an amp for you, and an amp for you, and an amp, because they could just toss them around, and they work just fine. But in 20 years, I mean, it's amazing how much less power we consume, while at the same time have increased resolution, headroom, sound pressure levels, capability. Everything's gone up while power consumption has gone down, at least in the AV world.
That'll be a good place to stop. Thank you all so much. Erica Carroll, thank you, ma'am. How do people connect with you or CharBett?
You can connect with me at the Erica Carroll in all of the places, or you can email me directly at erica@charbett.com, CharBett. And you can also find the Women in AV podcast at avnation.tv.
Yeah, we just recorded a brand new one yesterday, so that will be coming out soon. Mr. Ryan Gray from Yavapai College, thank you, sir. How do people connect with you or HETMA or listen to your podcast?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Search around and you'll find somebody that looks like me eventually amongst the Ryan Grays. Please do connect there. I love talking to people. Hetma.org. If you're, we're everywhere. So check out Hetma.org. And I would remind everybody, you do not have to be a member of higher ed to to join HETMA. There are a couple of tiers of HETMA in there, and we welcome industry partners and everybody to join. And the dues are really, really advantageous. That is, it's free and always will be. So check out hetma.org and come join our conversation. And finally, I would advise everybody search for the AVIT Amplifier podcast, in particular, an episode featuring today's host, Tim Albright, which please do. Actually, it's really good. If you want to learn about things you may not know about Tim Albright, I would encourage everybody to tune in.
Mike. Okay, that's why he's telling people to go listen.
I didn't make you cry. You
funny,
just simply
like it's the exception. No, really, this one was good. you really got to see it. This one really was good. I promise.
All right. Brown-Cestero, how do we get a hold of you, and how do they find out about Cavlo?
I am on most of the socials. You'll find me on LinkedIn by my name, and there's only 2 of us on LinkedIn with that last name. I happen to be, once related to my dear departed sister. And you'll find me on Twitter as Vegas AV Ace. If you want to see me in person, come to Vegas. There's lots of flights every day. Or B, catch me at a Cavlo, which will be happening next in Seattle on October the 10th. And I do believe you might see some HETMA folks in attendance.
All right. For Tim Albright, don't follow me anywhere on the socials because I'm not very interesting. Go listen to Ryan's podcast. You can even listen to the one with me. Do that. It's apparently a good one, is what he said. But go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including the one we just talked about, Erica Carroll's Women in AV podcast. We also have a brand new EdTech that just landed today, Friday the 19th. So all that. And we are headed to CEDIA. Actually, Erica will be there as well. So you can hang out with us in Denver the 5th through the 7th of September. So you can check that out as well on the website. So all that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.